What's good, Raider Nation? It's your boy Sanjit back at it with another video. Today, I have a very interesting update that I kind of saw that I want to speak to you guys about. This involves the Las Vegas Raiders superstar defensive lineman Christian Wilkins. There's, a report specifically that a medical expert put out there where he talked about the, best case scenario for Christian Wilkins and the worst case scenario. And this actually had me excited reading the worst case scenario aspect of it, and then just generally kind of learning about the injury a little bit. There's no reason why Christian Wilkins should not be able to fully heal and be ready as soon as like August or September. This report actually comes out by Bech, who is a medical doctor. He's a Stanford, Harvard trained sports surgeon. There's guys out there like Bech that know about sports injuries. I'm not one of those guys. I don't really know much, right? But Bech obviously knows what he's talking about. And for this guy to have this opinion of Christian Wilkins, it has me excited and hopeful that this guy, Wilkins, will be fully healthy as the season kind of comes around. I want to go ahead and just get into it. Now, there's a couple different moving parts that I want to talk about within this. This is obviously the text version of what Bech had to say. He was on a podcast specifically. If you guys want to check that out, I'll link that down in the comments below. But Bech basically put this out there. He said, in terms of the actual data, if Christian Wilkins comes back and he's healed, the refracture rate, as I mentioned, is quite low. So most players, once they come back, they're pretty much able to stay back. So that right away is a huge positive, right? Sometimes a guy might tear, an ACL and it could potentially end their career. Right? They never just fully heal. They're never able to get back to that point of where they were. And it just never ends up, they just never end up being the player they once were. Derek Carr, great example of this. He had a shoulder issue that kind of popped up. He had some shoulder things with the Raiders, right? It wasn't like as clear though with the Raiders, right? But like, I remember a couple times he was hurt with the Raiders due to a shoulder. And I'm not sure if it's the same thing that carried to when he got to the Saints. But he had the shoulder issue with the Saints, and he continuously had it with the Saints to the point he ended up retiring because he didn't want to continue to drag the New Orleans Saints through him rehabbing and kind of holding that team back. So he ends up just retiring, and we've seen this happen with other players as well, where essentially an injury just ends their NFL career. And in terms of this injury, right, the Jones fracture specifically, Bech is putting it out there, right? This doctor is saying that, hey, this injury will not end a guy's career. When he comes back, he'll basically be fully healthy. And again, the refracture rate, right, the chances he hurts that same exact bone again, it's very low, right? It's likely not going to happen. And then he also went out there and said, from what we're hearing, it sounds like the Raiders expect him to be ready for training camp. But obviously, the reports at this time of the year are optimistic, so it's a little bit hard to judge that at face value. But he did also went out and put it out there, but basically the worst case scenario, right? And I think this was one of the positives for me. He said the worst case scenario is that the bone is just not healing. And in that case, then it sometimes requires a revision surgery. Now, if he were undergoing that sort of thing, I would think that he would have already done it. And I didn't say any of this to scare Raider fans, just kind of pointed out that this is in theory a possibility. So Bech is basically saying, I don't want to scare Raider fans, but there is a chance he needs to have what is called a revision surgery. We already know about this, right? This is not the first time we're hearing about this. There's been other reports that Christian Wilkins may not be fully healing, right? We've seen him in a boot. We've seen him come out of the boots, kind of went back and forth. It's left a lot of us with question marks. We know Christian Wilkins is so damn important to the Raiders this season. He's one of the best defensive linemen in the entire NFL, and he changes the Raiders if he's on the field. We saw it for 5 weeks last year. The guy's an absolute superstar player. The thing that I like about this update, that if he was going to get this surgery, I think he would have had it already, right? To me, that is telling me if Christian Wilkins has not had the surgery, he's not going to have it, right? That's what that tells me. And I know people are going to say, hey, what if he plans to have it in 4 months from now or 2 months from now? What if he's just going to continue to try and then eventually he'll end up having the surgery? I don't think so. I think Christian Wilkins, if the foot, if the doctors that are obviously with the Raiders right now that are working on that foot, if they felt like, hey, he's not on the trajectory that he'll be able to be healthy at some point in the next 5 months, let's redo the surgery, they would have already done that. to me, what I take away from what's happening and just kind of following the Raiders is that Christian Wilkins has went into the building, he's put the effort in, he's worked out, and the Raiders have slowly, ramped up the work a little bit more every single day. And what's ultimately happened is that, when they get to like step 3 or step 4, maybe it starts to hurt a little bit. So what the Raiders are saying is, hey, we're not going to take this guy to step 3 or 4 right now. What we're going to do is we'll keep doing steps 1 and 2, and then we'll give him a month off to let that foot rest for a month. And then in a month from now, we'll go back to step 3 or 4. And we'll see where kind of, where we're at that point, right? And I also think that for the Raiders, they've probably seen enough progress where they feel like this guy will actually be 100%. I think there's a good chance that as the Raiders go forward, they're comfortable with where Christian Wilkins' foot is and how he's healing. And again, we're 3 months away still from the actual season beginning. I'm pretty sure this guy's going to be fully healthy for when that time comes, right? Again, the worst case is the bone is just not healing. I don't think that's what's happening right now. I think he's on a natural, it is healing, and that's why he hasn't done that surgery, because we would have already heard about that. The doctor also kind of goes out, continues to say, since he is now off the boot, to me it suggests that he's trending in the right direction, and therefore I would suspect that as he probably continues to do that, you'll get progressively more healing of that foot, of that bone, and his foot can kind of regain some of the strength around it in the muscles, because when you're not sort of training at an NFL level, you do lose some of that. Again, same thing as what I was kind of saying, right? Which is he is trending in the right direction, especially given that he's out of that boot, right? I think there's a real chance if he wasn't fully healthy, they would have never had him come out of that boot, right? For him to be out there and actually working out, which he has done in the past, it only makes sense if he's healthy and if he's trending in the right direction, right? The other thing that this guy said, which I think is pretty positive as well, is now the performance data for when Christian Wilkins comes back usually actually would be pretty good, especially given that the season is still 3 months away. So if Christian Wilkins is out there in training camp and kind of doing what we would normally expect for his position, I actually wouldn't really have concerns that he would have a lingering performance impact with this. He's had enough time removed from the injury and surgery itself that one would think he'd pretty much be ready to go. So there you guys have it, right? This guy's basically putting it out there, his thoughts and opinions. And again, just kind of recapping all of this, I'm pretty confident that Christian Wilkins will be fully healthy at some point. I know for us Raider fans, it does suck not seeing him fully healthy and essentially being out there. Mandatory minicamp, this guy wasn't even there for, I believe, the first 2 days. I think he was there the third day. Don't quote me on that. But I believe he was there, just, essentially watching the rest of the team off on the sideline. But the guy was actually there, and he wasn't practicing, right? And I know for us, it sucks that he's not out there practicing. But I do think as the Raiders continue to go forward, as like training camp comes around, I do think at some point he'll be fully healthy and he'll be good to go. Given that a doctor is also kind of breaking it down, it doesn't seem like this injury is going to be one of those type of things that'll slow him down into the future. The refracture rate is obviously low as well. I'm pretty confident that come July, right, end of July training camp, August preseason kind of comes around. I'm pretty confident this guy will be fully healthy and he'll be good to go. All right, 80% of people, according to this doctor, heal without any issues. I don't see why Christian Wilkins wouldn't be a part of that 80%. Doctor also pointed out Derrick Henry was a guy that had the same injury, and he was perfectly fine. Essentially now, right, where he's kind of at. He's having still plenty of success. So, I am excited to see Christian Wilkins back to be fully healthy. I think he's such a phenomenal football player, and he was getting better every single year. And for the Raiders, in those 5-6 weeks that he played, he was pretty much unblockable. Him and Maxx were actually dominating. I know our defense as a whole wasn't great, nor was the offense. But this year, it should be different. We should have a top 10 offense. And given Pete Carroll, a very, very smart coach, defensive-minded guy, pair him up as well with Patrick Graham, who's another guy that's very, very smart. You're turning over guys. You're bringing in new talents. I think the team should be good, but having Christian Wilkins will obviously be a big part of it. I want to switch focus. I want to talk about two more things here. There are a ton of free agents that are kind of available out there still. There's guys like Amari Cooper, Stephon Gilmore, Justin Simmons is another guy that is now being linked to the Las Vegas Raiders. And I want to talk about if I think the Raiders need to go out there and potentially add another safety. So first and foremost, Cody Benjamin is putting it out there that Justin Simmons, a landing spot for him is the Las Vegas Raiders. And I kind of want to talk about what this guy had to say. He's saying that the Las Vegas Raiders are linked to big name cover men like Jair Alexander, Jalen Ramsey. Thanks to their dearth of proven options at cornerback, the Raiders could just as easily use a savvy starter on the back end under defensively minded Pete Carroll. Besides possessing plenty of 2025 salary cap space to add help, the Raiders also employed pass game coordinator Joe Woods, who served as Simmons' first defensive backs coach in Denver. So Joe Woods obviously worked with Justin Simmons in the past, but more than that, the Raiders do need help in the secondary. And I'm not as concerned with our cornerbacks. I think corners is one of those positions where, you can rotate guys. You can bring in guys that you've never really heard of, and they can have success depending on the coach, depending on the scheme. And we've kind of seen that happen with the Raiders under Patrick Graham over the years, right? The Raiders have had a really good secondary pretty much every year under Patrick Graham. Minus this most recent season, I think it was the worst season we had with the secondary. But I think that was more so because of the injuries we had, right? We basically had, 4 of the 5 starters out. Right, the guys that were expected to come in and be the starters missed pretty much most of the season. Right, I think the Raiders under Patrick Graham could be okay with the corners that we kind of have. We've also been hearing some good things with some of the guys, right, Darren Porter. But I do worry about the safeties, and specifically, I worry about Isaiah Pola-Mao and Jeremy Chin because both guys are kind of the same type of safety. Both guys are really good around the line of scrimmage. Both guys can tackle if it comes down to like boxing guys in, and both guys are smart players and they're really good around the line of scrimmage. They're tall, they're big, they're strong. They can take on offensive linemen. They can play inside the box. But both guys are also not really known for their coverage abilities. And again, that kind of concerns me a little bit, right? Right now, Isaiah Pola-Mao is expected to be the Raiders' free safety. And I'm telling you guys, when I watched Isaiah Pola-Mao's tape last year, him as a strong safety was always impressive, right? When I saw this guy lining up in the A gap and blitzing like he did against the Chargers and sacking Justin Herbert, the guy's impressive, right? When he comes off the edge, he's impressive. But he's that non-impressive when I see him playing the free safety role. He'll take bad angles on guys. He won't get over the top on other plays, right? There were a couple of plays where the Raiders tried to bait quarterbacks and interceptions. Jack Jones jumps it, and then Pola-Mao doesn't get over the top, right? There's plays where he's just a step slow. And to me, if I'm thinking about Isaiah Pola-Mao, although he has upside and he looks really, really good at times, he also struggles as a free safety. And do understand, there's a massive difference between being a free safety and a strong safety. One guy called strong safety is meant to be close to the line of scrimmage and play strong and be strong. Free safety has to play freely. He has to have good hips. He has to be able to change direction. He has to be able to be fast. Isaiah Pola-Mao is not that, right? He's bigger. He's stronger. He's meant to play around the line of scrimmage. And again, I have concerns with the Raiders, but Justin Simmons, I think, would be a really, really, really good fit for the Raiders. Justin Simmons, to me, he is getting up there in age, but he's still a really good safety, and he can still find a lot of success for the Raiders. I do think the Raiders need to continue to look to upgrade and continue to add players. I think if you have $30, $40 million of cap space, try to spend as much of it as you can, right? Try to go all in and try to win this year. I understand, we're going to have extensions coming up and you want to try to keep as much cap space for those guys, but you still got to look to compete in the current year as well. And, 1-year contracts, 2-year contracts, I think are smart value contracts. Justin Simmons, if you can bring him in for 2 years, you're also at the point now where if a team hasn't signed him, they're probably not that interested. Justin Simmons, if he hasn't had if he hasn't had teams throwing $20 million at him, chances are he's not going to get that. He might be willing to take, $8 million or $11 million. I think for the Raiders, you got to really consider that, given that Justin Simmons would come in and probably be your best secondary player pretty much day one. And again, very, very solid football player. We'll see if the Raiders actually look to potentially bringing him in. I'd be all in on it. And then I want to just quickly talk about I think some people have already seen this because I think this is something that's kind of widely known. But Geno Smith has been the highest graded passer according to Pro Football Focus on 20 plus yard passes since 2022. All right, so essentially over the last 3 years, Geno Smith has been one of the best deep passers in the NFL. You know, when I saw this, it didn't surprise me. At no point did I feel like, oh, wow, that's shocking, right? But it kind of just shores up some of what I've already known about Geno Smith, and it kind of actually excites me a little bit thinking about what this offense can look like as we kind of go forward. You know, we have Dante Thornton Jr., who runs a 4.3 40-yard dash. We have Trey Tucker, who's very, very fast and explosive. Those guys are going to have a lot of success, in my opinion. They're going to run, 50, 60 yards. And Geno Smith's going to be able to deliver really, really nice passes to those guys downfield. But it's not just those guys. It'll be guys like Ashton Jeanty, who might run some sort of wheel concept. It might be a guy like Brock Bowers, who, if you throw Brock Bowers a 50-50 pass, he will take it out of the air. And don't overlook, when you have Gardner Minshew and you have Jimmy G, you have Aiden McConnell, these guys might not take those 50-50 opportunities to those wide receivers. Quarterbacks a lot of the time, all right? There's quarterbacks like Derek Carr, like Kirk Cousins. There's quarterbacks like even Brock Purdy, for example. These guys are programmed a certain type of way by these coordinators. And it's not a bad thing, right? Because you can have success with these guys. But these guys are programmed where you're going to see cover 3 and you're going to say, hey, we have these 2 route concepts. One of the 2 routes can beat cover 3. And they're going to mostly go to that one route concept, right? Like they won't say, hey, I have Calvin Johnson on this side going up against, cornerback X and he's a terrible cornerback. So I'm going to just throw him a 50-50 pass, right? Quarterbacks in the NFL are so conditioned to read the coverage and take the safe pass or do what you're kind of taught based off of what the coordinator wants you to do. And they only do that. And I'll give you guys a great example using Derek Carr, because obviously Derek Carr was with the Raiders for a number of years. There were times where Derek Carr would throw the ball away and people would get so angry about it, that why are you throwing the ball away? But based off of what happens, it would make sense for him to throw the ball away, right? It's kind of what he's taught. There's plays where Derek Carr would look to potentially, hey, we have a blitz coming, and with the blitz coming off the edge, I need to throw this pass to the left. I need to throw it to my running back out in the flats. And it's like 3rd and 11, he gets the ball out to his running back. And people are saying, why are you throwing it to your running back? But that's what you're taught as a quarterback, right? When the defense does X as a quarterback, you need to do Z, right? Or whatever it is. A lot of quarterbacks are designed to do that. I say all that because quarterbacks like Geno Smith, they don't care about things like that, right? If they see DK Metcalf going up against a bad corner, they're going to take that shot. They're going to take that 50-50 shot. And sometimes that's what makes quarterbacks great, right? Joe Burrow doesn't always just do whatever, the read tells you to do. Sometimes he'll say, I have T. Higgins on one side, I have Jamar Chase on the other. Josh Allen will sometimes say, I'm going to get out of here, even though maybe I'm not supposed to. Maybe I'm supposed to check it down. And that's sometimes what makes quarterbacks great. And Geno Smith also kind of does that, right? And again, him being graded this high when it comes to deep passing has me excited for what this offense can be. Michael Mayer, to me, is a huge, huge, huge threat on those jump balls, right? The jump back technique that he has is really, really good. And I'm not surprised because we're also hearing Michael Mayer is having more success right now in minicamp and OTAs. But I'm not surprised hearing that, given Geno Smith is the guy throwing him the football. We're also hearing some of the other guys, right? Dante Thornton is having success. Trey Tucker is having success, right? These guys are beating guys deep, and Geno Smith's hitting them in stride. I'm not surprised we're hearing these reports. I hope it actually translates to the actual season. I think it will, but we'll see what ends up happening. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What do you guys think about the Las Vegas Raiders this season? Do you guys think we need more players on the defensive side, maybe a safety? What do you guys think about Christian Wilkins and some of the updates that are coming out? Obviously, to me, very, very positive update, but let me know what you guys think. Thumbs up, subscribe. I hope you guys all have a great day, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.